Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we are discussing Thai immigration, and this does not happen overly often, although I'm sure on the internet, and there'll probably be in the comments below, a bunch of people that'll tell you it happens all the time. In our experience, this is pretty rare, but it does happen. Nobody's perfect. Thai immigration can make mistakes, and notwithstanding their mistake, it can still hurt you. What am I talking about here? Well, for example, where we see this happen the most, and it hasn't been very frequent lately, mostly because Thai immigration has a lot more time on their hands out at the airport, but during sort of peak travel, we would see this a lot where, for example, someone would come into Thailand on a multi-entry visa, and they just get stamped in, and they don't even look at that stamp, and they think, oh, they stamped in my multi-entry visa. That may not necessarily be the case. The immigration officer may have been moving quickly, and they just see the passport, and they just give an exemption stamp. Seen that happen a lot, when in fact that person had a multi-entry sticker in their passport, it just got overlooked, and they were stamped in for 30 days, for example, with a business visa, when they should have been stamped in for 90 days in business visa status, and more importantly, in business visa status to act as a platform for a work permit. I've seen this happen. I can think of one client specifically that there was a mistake made, and that person was intending to come in, get their work permit issued, and then they had to leave for another business meeting in the region, only they couldn't do it on that trip because by the time we would have had to fix the mistake, which immigration will fix their mistakes, but it can cost you time. And the other thing that happens is folks think that their visa worked one way, and when they come in, it in fact didn't work the same way that they thought it would work. Let me explain what I'm talking about. So again, this same thing can happen where somebody thinks they came in on a multi-entry visa and got a 90-day stamp, but in fact they got a 30, and they didn't check it at the time that they came in, and they inadvertently now are at least the prima facie on its face, they're on overstay in Thailand. Now, again, we've seen those circumstances. It's difficult to deal with, but one can rectify it. My point is, in making this video, for example, when you're coming through Thai immigration, check to make sure you were stamped in the visa status you were seeking. The other thing is, and we've seen this happen, in extension matters, where they'll get the date off sometimes. They'll have the day, it'll be one day behind when it should be, and that can cause other problems in a month later when you have to go back to get your visa further extended, because that date is off. You're not going to be there on the day of. You need to be there the next day. Again, immigration has the plenary power to fix these little mistakes, but it can be a problem if you don't look at your stuff, look at your documentation, and kind of keep an eye on it. Now, I'm not saying be overly paranoid about your immigration stuff, about your immigration documentation, but just kind of keep an eye. I especially find this to be the case when immigration is really busy, when coming through a border checkpoint. Just double check and make sure, okay, I was stamped in with the visa that I've got, and go from there. So the other thing that we do see sometimes is, sometimes immigration, they won't necessarily volunteer, it's really not their job, but people will leave the country not knowing they need a reentry permit. If you have a visa extension, in order to maintain one's status and go abroad simultaneously, you have to get a reentry permit to do that. Well, immigration may not necessarily tell you that, and that's not really their mistake. It's more on the applicant to sort of understand that. But I've definitely seen people, they'll go get their extension, they'll have a one-year extension, and then they'll leave the country and they'll fall out of status because they didn't have a reentry permit. So again, it's not all about Thai immigration's mistake, but even their mistakes can cause you some problems down the road. Anytime you interact with immigration and you go ahead and get a stamp, not a terrible idea to just double check it, ascertain where you stand with respect to that stamp before sort of departing the scene, if you will, in order to ensure that your status is what you believe it to be.